the young and the restless spoilers. For weeks now, Sharon had been seeing Heather's ghost. The ethereal figure appeared in fleeting glimpses, haunting her through reflections in store windows, lurking in the dim light of street corners, even showing up in her dreams, whispering words that Sharon couldn't quite understand. She was sure it was Heather, returning from beyond with one singular purpose: revenge. Each sighting left Sharon pale and breathless, a fresh layer of dread sinking into her bones. It was almost as if Heather was everywhere, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sharon's anxiety grew into a palpable fear that gnawed at her mind, but little did she know that these ghostly encounters were no supernatural phenomena. They were the carefully crafted work of Phyllis, a woman who knew Sharon's weaknesses all too well. Phyllis was nothing if not ruthless, and she had orchestrated every shadow, every eerie sighting, and every whisper to prey upon Sharon's guilt-ridden psyche. She knew that fear was the quickest path to breaking Sharon. She wanted Sharon desperate, helpless, and, most of all, repentant. Her aim was to push Sharon into a state of such torment that she would eventually crumble under the weight of her guilt and beg for mercy. Sharon's guilt was indeed unbearable. It clawed at her, tearing her apart from the inside. She regretted what she had done to Heather, despite the fact that it had been an accident. An argument that escalated, a moment of rage, a tragic mistake that she couldn't take back. Sharon hadn't meant for it to go this far, but now the blood was on her hands, a stain she could never wash away. And yet, here she was, haunted by the consequence of her actions, feeling as if Heather's spirit was coming to exact justice. The fear that she might be exposed, that Heather's specter would somehow reveal her guilt, consumed Sharon day and night. With each passing day, Sharon's paranoia grew, her nerves frayed to the point of breaking. Soon, she found herself on the verge of a breakdown, unable to bear the weight of her own secret. Every shadow seemed to mock her, and every reflection sneered with accusation. Desperation whispered in her ear, urging her to escape. She knew that running would make her look guilty, because she was guilty. And running would only add fuel to the rumors and suspicions. But what choice did she have? She couldn't stay here, trapped in the web of her own lies, forever haunted by Heather's ghost. She had to leave, even if it meant leaving behind everything she'd ever known. The final blow came one dark, sleepless night, when the fear became too much to bear. Sharon wrote a hasty goodbye note, her hands shaking as she poured out her remorse and fear onto the paper. It wasn't a confession, but more of an admission of her guilt. She hinted at regrets, at mistakes made, leaving just enough unsaid to leave others guessing. She hoped that someone, anyone, might read between the lines and understand her torment, even if they never knew the full truth. Then, in the dead of night, she slipped out, leaving behind the life that had become her prison. Phyllis, of course, was watching all of this from the shadows, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly, Sharon was unraveling, just as she'd intended. But even she hadn't anticipated that Sharon would go as far as to leave town. Phyllis had merely hoped to frighten her into confession, to manipulate her into giving up her secrets. But now, with Sharon gone, the game had taken on a new dimension. Phyllis saw it as an opportunity, a chance to keep the pressure on even from a distance. But where had Sharon gone? Phyllis needed to know. She had put so much effort into dismantling Sharon's life that letting her escape now would be unacceptable. She would find out where Sharon had fled, and she would ensure that Sharon continued to feel the weight of her sins, even from afar. Phyllis would play the role of Heather's vengeful ghost to the bitter end if that was what it took to push Sharon into breaking down completely, into finally admitting everything. Meanwhile, Sharon found herself in a small, isolated town far from anyone who knew her. She rented a shabby room in a rundown motel, hoping that the anonymity would help her escape her past. But even in the quiet of this forgotten place, her paranoia didn't let up. She couldn't stop looking over her shoulder, wondering if Heather's ghost, or worse, someone sent by Phyllis, was following her. She felt as if Heather was still with her, that shadowy figure lurking just beyond her line of sight, forever waiting to pounce. And as the days turned into weeks, Sharon's mental state continued to spiral downward. She was plagued by nightmares, tormented by the thought that Heather's spirit had truly returned to seek vengeance. She began to question her own mind, her own memories.